Hi there, welcome back to the Podio Academy. This is Podio 101, using applications and items. Now, in this training, we're going to cover some of the following topics. We're going to talk about creating items. Within Podio, we've gone through creating applications. Inside of our applications, each item represents an individual record within that application. So we'll talk about a couple of basic ways that you can create those. We'll talk about how you can use filters, views, and reports. So once you start to get items into your applications, you have the ability to filter based on things like category fields, member fields, things like that. And you can then save those as unique layout views or reports in Podio. Like I said, we'll talk about app layouts. We do have obviously a table view, but there's a couple other views that, depending on your application type or your personal preference, you might find a little bit better. We'll talk about the item activity. How do we track changes and updates made to items, making sure that everybody is in sync with what is going on with all of our work. We'll talk for just a quick second about Podio comments, learning how to use those, at mentioned people and really collaborate effectively. And then finally, we'll cover real quick just the ability to import and export items. So something that's really cool in Podio, especially as you're getting started with building your apps and adding items, is you have the ability to import and export data into a Podio app via an Excel or CSV file. So let's go ahead and let's get started. So I'm going to come over to my Podio workspace that we've been working on here. And you can see here that I've got a series of applications. I've got contacts and projects, milestones, and customer requests. Now, what I want to do is, because we're talking about just the context of creating an item, what I'm going to do is, let's say I want to just go create a new project. So if we look at an existing project, we can see here I've got a series of fields. I've got my project name and contact and status. But let's say it's time to add another one. What I can do is I can just simply click add project. And let's give this a project name. So let's call this test project 22. Let's see, go ahead, and we're using a relationship field here. So let's make Screech the project contact. Let's say our project stage, well, let's just leave those alone and save it. Again, you can choose to down the road write workflows that will automatically update statuses when these things are created. But again, for right now, just purposes of this video, keeping it very simple, I'm going to go ahead and manually create this item, and then I can come in. Um, oh, it did update, actually. Let's make that not started. Let's make this project stage design, and let's say it's medium. So again, really easy to manually create, a new item within an application. Now, one of the next things that we can do is we can start to look at all of our items that we've created, and we can start to filter and sort these things. So again, it's kind of easy when I'm in a table view. It's got a very Excel like feel to it. But what I can come up here is I can come up to this filter button, and I can say, let's say I want to only look at those projects where status is late. So this is a big problem, obviously, for us right now. There's some work we've got to do. So I can filter down to all of those projects where status is late. And then I can do a couple of things with that filter. I can continue to add other fields that we filter in. So let's say I want to see where, Zach is the project lead. Unfortunately for Zach, he's the project lead on all of these. But just to kind of give you an idea, you can filter by multiple fields at the same time. But then what I can do is a couple of things. One, I can choose whether or not I like this layout. So let's say I want to move, some of these things here. I know that, Zach is the problem here. So let's take this out. Let's take out project notes. Let's expand, the project name. I kind of get the table looking the way I want it. What I can then do is I can take this layout and the filtered set of data, and I can save it as a view. So let's call this all late projects. Now I can choose to save this in one of two places. I can choose to save this in my private views, where only I'm able to access those filters and views, or as a team view, which means everybody on the team, when they come into the app, will see these. So I'm going to click team view. And then we do have the ability to split by any of these other fields. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split it by urgency and save it. So here we've now got a saved view. And if I come up here to all projects, it's going to show me all of them. If I come down here, we'll see our filter applied and we'll see our layout, come in where we had set that up and saved it. So it's really handy to help, from a navigation perspective and really get down to the areas where, the team needs to focus and dial in the most. So now within each of these items that we've created, let's talk for a couple minutes just about collaboration. So, a couple of key things here. One, we do have the ability to add comments. So, it's really nice if you use Slack or Microsoft Teams or a similar tool. It's very similar to that. The only difference, though, is we're bringing it into the context of your work. So, in this case, imagine having Teams or Slack embedded in the project record that we're discussing. So, let's say I needed to talk to Joel about this. I could mention him. Hey, we need to review this. I could save that. This item was actually now just shared because I was not part of that workspace. So I can actually, whoops, if I click the one, I can see that here that it's shared with my user. So again, a lot of that different back and forth conversation can happen here. The other thing we can do is if I'm anywhere on the screen and I push the T button, I can create a task. So let's say, let's say I need Joel to follow up with the customer on this. I could create a task for myself or for him. I could give it a due date. I could create task. And now that task will live here, again, in the context of the project that I'm working on. So really nice to have that in place, so we can go back and forth, have that conversation again in the context of the item that we're working on, and be able to coordinate together, who's got the next activity with that project. Now, let's come back to our views real quick, because another thing we can do is we can start to go into reports. Now, we're going to do a whole different video on reports, but just to give you an idea, now that I've got this filter set up where I can see all late projects, now I can use this little report dropdown to start looking at the data or building reports. So let's say I want to do a count of projects, by project lead. This will tell me, oh, okay, for all of our late projects, all 10 are Zach. I mean, obviously we can see that from the data here, but if you had a larger set of data and multiple people or multiple category types that you wanted to, organize this by, might get a little bit harder to see that, just visually. So we can come in and we can build these reports. Now, sometimes just looking at the data this way is helpful to say, okay, I see what's going on. I know what I need to do next in order to keep this work moving. Sometimes, though, we want to build reports to save for later. If that's the case, and I wanted to say, you know what, I always want the team to know how many late projects we have. I could do something like this where I do no filter, or I'm sorry, no split of items per. I'm just going to leave it blank. And I'm going to say all late projects. And just to make sure it's clear, late projects. And I'm actually going to go put this on our workspace homepage for everybody to see when they come in. And I can move these things around. So again, it's really easy to, look at that data after we've created our items, sort and filter all of that data, and then start to report on it as well. Okay. Now, let's say, for example, last thing in this video, we have some data that we already want to bring in. We have the ability to do a couple things as a workspace admin where we can export data or we can import it in. So let's actually do this real quick. I'm actually going to export this data just so we can see what that looks like. So we can see my export has completed. I'm just going to go save that to my downloads. And then actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to clone this app real quick, just so we have a copy of it, but I'm not going to clone the contents. So I'm basically going to create an exact replica of that just to show you what the import looks like. So, if you're just getting started, or you say, you know what, I started to manually put some of uh, my projects or my leads or whatever the case might be, whatever your items are, you've started to put those in, but then you realize, hey, I've got these in another system where I can dump them into a CSV, or I've been tracking them in Excel. It's really easy to bring those in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Excel import, and I'm going to go right back and grab that file. So it's the one I just downloaded. And then what it's going to let me do is it's going to let me start mapping my fields. Now these, if we go back and just look at this nice little visual, the columns of our spreadsheet can be mapped to our Podio fields. So these column names and the fields in Podio do not need to be named the same thing, so long as you know that, if we've got something in the spreadsheet where the column name is name, in Podio it's project name. As long as you know those go together, you can start mapping those things right together. So, in fact, let's go ahead and let's do status. Let's do, oops, no, that's for the related item. I want project status. I want project stage. I want urgency. And then for the related project contact, I want that. Let's see. Let's bring over the project lead, because that will be our lead name. And let's bring over the due date and our notes. So, okay. So I've mapped the fields I want. For right now, I'm just going to leave all of these others off. But let's go ahead and click next. And what this is going to tell me is it's going to give me a chance to deduplicate data. Now, because this is a totally separate app, I don't need to worry about whether or not I'm duplicating data because I'm bringing it all in. But what you can do is you can choose some of these fields to be able to essentially lock. So, for example, if I already had a bunch of projects in the app and I wanted to import these 10, if my unique identifier to match those is the project name, I can lock that field. And what that would mean is that any items that already exist that are called test project 3 will simply be updated with the data below. So, again, though, in this case, I'm not going to lock any of these because we're bringing these all in as new. So let's go ahead and click import. And let's give this a second to run. My import has completed. So if I refresh, all of my projects are there, and everything has come in through that import. So, again, really easy to get your data not just out of Podio, but if you're in the process of getting started and trying to get all of your records into Podio, it's really easy to do via an Excel or CVS import. Thanks for joining this video, and we'll see you on the next one.